some time here today. What I want to share with you is something I share with my clients and students wherever they may be, and that is foundational principles for winning hearts and minds and inspiring trust and confidence by exercising the leadership discipline of being good at engaging stakeholders well. Engaging stakeholders well is a leadership discipline that is often ignored or discounted or marginalized by leaders to their peril. And I hope to share with you today both some concepts and some tools and some tips to help you become habitually strategic when engaging those who matter to you, whether they're those up the chain of command, across, down the chain of command, business partners, and others. How do you get them to want to do business with you? How do you get them to have trust in you, have confidence in you, and how do you lead them effectively? Much of what I'm going to share today can be found within the covers of my most recent book. I'm not here to sell books, although there are some limited number of books for sale in the back. I can give you free of charge a summary of the book in the form of 10 cards, each of which focuses on a particular leadership principle, only a couple of which I'm going to talk about today, but they're free of charge on the back counter. I wrote The Power of Communication, Skills to Build Trust, Inspire Loyalty, and Lead Effectively to help leaders be better at exercising their leadership discipline. And in the book, I focus on three things. First, what works and what doesn't work when leaders need to inspire trust and confidence. What works and what doesn't work when leaders need to win hearts and minds, in particular in high-stakes situations. What works and doesn't work in high-stakes situations. We're going to talk about some of that today. The second thing I do we're not going to talk about today, and that is I have taken a military manual. I've taken the first doctrinal publication of the United States Marine Corps, and by changing just a couple of words, have translated it into a conceptual framework for leaders to understand how to be truly strategic. Now, warfighting, United States Marine Corps Doctrinal Publication number 1, despite its title, is not about fighting wars. It's not about fighting, and it's not about wars. It's about understanding goals, understanding how to accomplish those goals, and understanding how to organize activities in order to move constantly towards the accomplishment of those goals. And one of the things I found when I encountered warfighting is the first paragraph of warfighting, by changing one word, gives us a really good understanding of effective leadership communication. The first paragraph of warfighting says, war, and I say effective leadership communication, is fundamentally an interactive social process, a process of continuous mutual adaptation, of give and take, of move and counter-move. Not a bad way to understand effective communication. Second paragraph. It's a mistake to think that your enemy, I substitute your audience, thinks the way you think, cares about what you care about, decides the way you decide. Leaders often assume that those they speak with care about what they care about. They don't. Know what they know. They don't. Make choices the way they make choices. They don't. And one of the disciplines of leadership is to care so much about those we are trying to influence that we meet them on their terms, not on our terms. And we get that, frankly, from the Marines. Isn't that a kick? The third thing I do in the book is distill all of it down into 9 principles of effective leadership communication, 9 ways to understand how leaders, 9 ways to think about how you, as a leader, can engage stakeholders consistently, persistently, well, and become habitually strategic in all of your engagements. Now, why does that matter? Warren Buffett told the Columbia Graduate School of Business about 4 years ago, if you can improve your communication skills, you can increase your value in the marketplace by 50%. I don't know what quantitative work he did on that. I know Warren tends to follow certain quantitative models. But in my experience, at least on orders of magnitude, I think he's got that about right. that when you look at those who excel as leaders, they commonly have consistently in common effective interpersonal engagement. We heard the word gravitas used in the other room, and my colleague and partner Raleigh Mayer is next door preaching the virtues of gravitas. And I encourage you, if you haven't had a session with Raleigh, please find an opportunity to do so. But the Center for Talent Innovation, about 4 months ago, published a report on what it takes to get the next promotion. And it surveyed senior HR executives, senior executives around sectors and around geographies, and concluded that 26% of any executive's next promotion is based on something other than the technical skills that the executive is required to exhibit, but rather on what they call executive presence. And they define executive presence in 3 ways. Now, this is their definition, not mine. They define executive presence first as gravitas. First, as the ability to project poise, to project confidence, especially under pressure, and to be decisive when people are looking to you for leadership. That's gravitas. Second, what they call communication, which they define not only as the ability to speak clearly, but more significantly as the ability to read a situation, to read an audience, to read a room, and to adapt based on the reaction of the audience. They have embraced, knowingly or not, the Marine Corps doctrine of continuous mutual adaptation, of give and take, of move and countermove. And the third thing they point to when they talk about executive presence is what they call appearance, which is not the superficial appearance. In my case, do I have hair or not? But rather, does the package work? Does the person look the part? Does the person carry herself or himself the way one would expect the person in that position to carry herself or himself? I had nothing to do with that. I just observed it. But as I read their report, I thought, that's actually very consistent with my observations. And when we ask, why should we care about the things that we're talking about in these 3 rooms, I think that's a good answer. Because 26% of your next promotion is going to be based on these things. Having said that, today what I want to share with you over the next hour and 20 minutes or so is 3 ways to understand how to get consistently good at engaging stakeholders well. And I'm going to start simply by unbundling a little bit about 3 of the principles of effective leadership communication from the power of communication. The first is communication is not an afterthought in business. Communication is not a nice to have in business, but rather communication is an essential part of business. I call it the continuation of business by other means. We need to take communication as seriously as we take every other business function. We need to take communication as seriously as we take accounting, as seriously as we take finance, as seriously as we take HR, compliance, operations. We need to take communication as seriously as we take all of those other disciplines. But there's a challenge. We've been speaking since we were about 1 year old. We've been reading and writing since we were 4 or 5. We think we're already good at it. And unlike accounting, we don't leave the office and go to dinner and do accounting over the table, but we leave the office and go to dinner and communicate over the table. So we think we're doing it all the time, and therefore we must be good at it. But as I reflect on leaders who have career-defining meltdowns, it's often because they didn't take communication quite as seriously as they took all of the other elements of business. So we need to take it seriously. More about that in a moment. But the discipline of leadership and taking communication seriously is we need to work hard to be able to connect. We need to work hard to be able to connect, and that's often forgotten. The second principle that we're going to spend a lot of time on today is that we can't move people if we don't meet them where they are. We need to meet them where they are physically. Can they even hear us or see us? We need to meet them where they are intellectually. Are we speaking below them, at them, above their capacity? Are we speaking only about what we care about and not at all about what they care about? We also need to meet them emotionally. We need to meet them spiritually. We need to meet them in all of the ways that human beings experience each other. And leaders are often scared about connecting with people on the non-intellectual level. And I believe that as a society we have fetishized intellect and underplayed emotional connection, and leaders who do that to their peril. We're going to spend a lot of time today on emotional connection and how critically important it is for leaders across enterprises and at all levels. And then finally, the real discipline of leadership communication is to understand what human beings are even capable of. And when I look at massive leadership fails, it's because the leaders fail to appreciate what human beings are even capable of, especially what human beings are capable of under stress, what human beings are capable of when they're in pain, what human beings are capable of when they're anxious, when there's an environment of persistent change, when there's an environment of staff reductions, when there's an environment of economic insecurity. What are human beings actually capable of? And leaders who fail to connect by failing to understand what human beings are capable of are failing in their leadership burden. So that's what we're going to talk about today.